On Saturday, I had a brain thinking thing. What would fart
Uh,
is one thing people talk about. They talk about a explosion. What you have any great names for?
a headache with pictures.
That was probably what it was. And I explained that on Saturday morning, and the response was that Sunday morning. Might have been Sunday morning. Anyway, the response was very good. People seemed to think that I was maybe onto something. But from time to time, you do like to have another brainiac in the story, somebody who can refute every single thing I've said, or slap me on the back and say, Randy, what in the heck? How come we didn't think of that before? Anyway, okay, so let's talk about it. Oh, by the way, this is Brian White.
Ah,
And you knew that already, but if you don't follow him, you should. It's Futuraza.com, Futuraza video, Futuraza, Twitter, not Twitter, X, not Futuraza, just Futuraza. Uh,
mhm.
yeah. And oh, yeah, I know another one, Patreon. I bet that would be his favorite for you to go over and check out his Patreon. Okay, so back to the story. Brian,
Yes, sir.
it's probably obvious to even you. No, I'm sorry. It's probably obvious to you that once FSD is a thing, once it's complete and it's also level 4, level 5, you can sit in the back seat and have it take you wherever you're going to go. This will increase the interest in Tesla vehicles, therefore the sales of Tesla vehicles. Is that pretty much what you'd think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If that happens anytime before some other manufacturer gets a true level 4 that you can purchase, absolutely, without a doubt, sales will go a little nutty.
I think even, yeah, nutty would yeah. So it would bring in a whole bunch of people that haven't even been really carefully considering it when it truly becomes what it is. Because first of all, everybody, the word of mouth will just go nuts. You will go next door to your neighbor and say, okay, now let's go for a ride, right?
I'm already doing that with mixed results, but yes, absolutely. One word will get out instantly. It'll
Instantly.
be as big of a sensation as Cybertruck.
It's
We,
Cybertruck. Yeah.
you and I discussed before Cybertruck came out that the biggest marketing will be that every city's lazy news crew looking for a quick, fun piece will
Yeah.
do a piece on the first Cybertruck they can get their hands on, just checking it out, just looking at it, now just driving it. And that's what we're going to see with this is as sensational as robo-taxis are in San Francisco, where they exist,
Yeah.
uh, they don't make a national splash because, great, that exists in one place.
Right.
When they're everywhere and work, well, yeah, that's going to be huge, and demand cannot help but follow.
Once again, that's why I have you on. See, I didn't think and I'm the marketing guy, and I didn't think about the fact that the press is going to be all over this with or without Elon Musk having a PR department.
Yes,
So, okay, so word of mouth will be huge. The word will get out fast, and people will start to buy it just because they would love to have a car that ferries them around and they don't have to drive. And I mean, that's just a big deal. And besides, there's as we know, first mover kind of thing where you want to be the first in your neighborhood to have such a thing. And there's a whole bunch of folks like that haven't bought a Tesla yet, and this would be the thing that would gin them into that purchase. Would you agree?
I think it's bigger than that. I think it's 1% of everybody who isn't interested would become interested instantly. I
Right.
think 10% of people on the fence would would stop would stop being on the fence. Now, 1%, 10%, that doesn't sound like a lot, but compare that to the 20 million autos sold in the US. That's 2 million more cars they would need to sell just in the US. That's demand would outstrip supply instantly. And you know how their dynamic pricing is. As soon as the backlog hits a month, they're going to bump prices a little. As soon as it hits 2 months, they're going to bump prices a lot. And if it gets to 3 to 6 months, baby, it's going up. It's going to be back in the 60, 70,000 range because if people we're trying to keep the queue short, and if the queue's getting too long, we got to bump prices. Margins will look good.
So that part of it, except for the PR part of it, that part of it was obvious to me. I've even been talking about it for some months. But the part that was new to me, and maybe it'll be new to you, maybe it'll be new to all of you out there, maybe somebody said it before, but I can't find anybody that said it before. The entrepreneur class, the folks who would like to be in small business, and in particular, if we're going into a recession, those people who lose their jobs. Well, we already got layoffs happening. People who lose their jobs, one of the first things they think is, what kind of a business could I get into? What better business than a vehicle that you push an app and it just goes and makes you money? I can't even imagine what the uptake is going to be on small business inclined folks to go out and start buying these cars up.
It's tough to say because everybody's got different use cases, but if it's going out as a robotaxi, the question becomes, what is the rate? Because we've seen Elon say, oh, it'll be 10 cents a mile. I'm not giving my car out for 10 cents a mile, probably not even for $1 a mile, but some people will. And at $1 a mile, I would use these. I would use these every 100 times out of 100 over Uber because it's cheaper. It's just better. Uber's got some issues. And then you don't have to worry about ratings and tips and all that. And it's just extra nonsense. Yeah. So, but let me give you a use case for it. Appraiser. Appraiser goes out to a site, measures off the house, takes some pictures, then gets in the car and sits there for 30, 40, 60 minutes driving back to the office or driving to the next location. What if instead he was working on the appraisal? What if he was doing it right then and there on the way to the next job while it's all still fresh in their head? They would be able to, you'd be able to do 5, 6, 7 a day without losing your mind. And when you go home at the end of the day, you're just home. You just hired a full-time assistant for frankly nothing.
Nothing. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, the use cases, I think, go on and on. As a guy who had a lot of experience in sales and hiring salespeople and managing salespeople, a salesman is the same situation. He gets down with the call. He wants to take the time to write it all down, remember what he did, put the order together, maybe call it in. But if you're now in your traveling office, all of that becomes something you do while you're going to the next call. So there's a jillion like that. But I want to talk, let's move back to the opposite side. Let's move to the side of let's say it's you. Let's say that Brian wakes up one morning and he says, I've got a Tesla and I'm probably going to put it on the streets and have it make me money, at least part-time, when it becomes a robotaxi. But let's see, right now, I know I can buy a used Model 3 for, $25,000, maybe, with a $4,000 off from the government. So I'm getting $21,000. And that car will make me $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year as a standalone small business that I'll never drive. It'll just be for the robotaxi purposes. That's going to appeal to a ton of folks.
Without a doubt, but only briefly, because the $20,000 to $25,000 used Teslas will get scarce and they'll be replaced with $25,000 and $30,000, $35,000. Because when you get to business, you know how it is. You've sold to customers who are emotional buyers, and emotional buyers. Well, I'll pay an extra dollar, an extra 30%, 100% if I can afford it for something that appeals to me. Business buyers don't care. That's why rental fleets had so many Pontiac Aztecs when nobody wanted them, was because they got a heck of a deal on them. And renters are different people than owners. And for the businesses, they don't care. They just want a cheap car that works. So what's going to happen is we will find market equilibrium in the pricing. And I would say it's possible that we would see used prices exceeding new prices, but we really didn't during the lockdown. The only ones you saw that were priced over new were at dealerships that had financing that only a few people would ever use. Right. The kind of finance, a well-qualified buyer was still buying a new one over a used, but if you weren't well qualified and you still wanted the car, somebody will sell it to you at a price that makes your eyes water a little bit.
Well, in this particular case, business owners typically make a decision like that based on their expected return on investment. So what can I afford to pay? So if the market out there is for a $30,000 vehicle, but I think it's only going to make me $10,000 a year, not a good deal. But if I've got a $30,000 vehicle that I can buy that I think is going to make me $30,000 a year, that is a no-brainer.
That's a slam dunk.
It's a slam dunk. Now, somewhere in between is where the negotiating takes place and where people make some kinds of, like, maybe if I can get my money back in 2 years and it's still got 6 years of useful life, that's a really good deal. So that's how that's all going to play out. Now, we also don't know what's going to happen in terms of the price on the street. We don't even know how it's going to be set. Is Elon going to set, I mean, is Tesla going to set them with some kind of an algorithmic system? Will I be able to have any impact? If I own the car, will I be able to have any impact and say, I want it only at the high range, or I want it only, I'm willing to do it at whatever price. I mean, I don't know how that's going to get set, but over time, we should find that equilibrium also. We will start to hear from those who own robotaxis kind of what they're making per hour by having, or per mile, or per day, or per month by having their vehicles out there.
Exactly. We will know more in 2 months, and 5 days, but there will be a lot of possibilities. I mean, right now the possibilities are endless. If we saw what the plan is today, we could rest assured that some part of it is going to change before it's implemented. Maybe to tighten some parts of it or to loosen up some parts of it. And yeah, do you want, it would be like with a lot of virtual power plants, you can say, look, you can only tap into my battery in my garage if the price exceeds whatever, $1 a kilowatt, 50 cents a kilowatt. But with the cars, you could probably do the same. I'll leave it parked outside, or it's got the home link, but if it's charging, that doesn't really apply. But and if surge pricing gets to a certain level, then you can add my car. But don't take it out for 50 cents a mile or 80 cents a mile. Only take it out if it's, a buck or two, whatever you set. And that would be very easy for their advanced AI to manage. And it would work and it would make everyone happy.
Now, we know that this is going to take place because we already know examples. Now, we see them on X. They're not my personal friends or my associates, but we know that Brian Wang, for instance, has 9, I think it could be 10 Cybertrucks on order. He didn't get those to put them on Turo. He got those to put them as robotaxis. So this idea that people would start buying small fleets, and maybe the fleet will only be one car. My wife has said, look, when we get our Cybertruck, we'll put our Model Y out to, robotaxi. So it might be a fleet of one, like we're planning to have. It might be somebody else would say, well, I'll just get a couple, 3. I mean, if they make, let's say that the people have talked about 50,000 a year. That seems to be the going number from the Cathie Woods and other people that have done the analysis. But let's say it was 30,000 a year. If I was to just have 3 of those and it's making me $30,000 a year, I don't know that the person that has that situation would ever work.
Well, especially you like to go on vacation sometimes. And when you go on vacation, if you stop working while you're on vacation, you'll notice that your income drops sharply. But when you're out of town with a robotaxi or 2 or 3, those actually are available more than they were when you were in town. So imagine vacation is when you make the most money. That's a wild thought.
That's a very wild thought.
And I've seen people saying, well, this is only going to widen the division of classes. It's like, well, except that if you're the person taking the robotaxi and now you're paying a third of what you were before, figure out what it costs you to drive each month. No matter how beat up your car is, you're not paying less than $300 a month for ownership. You can buy an old cheap one, but you're going to be putting repairs into it. You're going to be feeding it oil, and it's due for tires and brakes and all that. It's going to be easily $300 a month before you even figure in the cost of fuel. And then with fuel, let's say another $150 a month. So right there, you're at $15 a day. $15 a day would get you around town in a robotaxi. So now you don't have to worry about unexpected things. You don't have to worry about crashes or catastrophic failures. And I don't know, man, I think you're coming out ahead.
So what my eventual point in all of this is that the first level thinking, the level thinking that I didn't have until Sunday and that I don't think anybody else has started to talk about, first level thinking says, oh, we're going to have a surge in purchases based on just the fact that it's FSD and that it's a chauffeur-driven car because it's interesting, fun, and useful. And so people start buying it, and that will probably wipe out, you know, the oversupply that they currently have and or the over capacity that we now have. That will probably be wiped out really soon. But then the entrepreneurs will come in and they'll bid the price up. They'll start just buying even more, which is going to drive the price even higher. So at some point, in my view, we go back to this original question you and I think, might have talked about 6 months ago. Will we have a two-tiered system for FSD? Will there still be any opportunity for a regular mom with 2 kids who wants a Tesla? Will she be able to buy a car from Tesla, or will all of them be 75,000 because they'll all have FSD and they'll all be based on the real value as a business? And will they be completely priced out of the market, or will Elon offer a vehicle that cannot be a commercial vehicle unless you pay sometime later? You could, you buy it now, it's the regular price. It's $39.9, whatever.
Sure.
You get it for $39.9 now, but you can't use it in the robotaxi fleet. Later on, you want to put it in the robotaxi fleet, you fork over 30,000 or
20, 30, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's possible. It's possible. It's much too soon to say. There are always going to be a class of people who just want the pure driving fun, the excitement, the joy of it. And for those people, I believe they will still manufacture them with steering wheels. And the beauty of the robotaxi is not only do you not need the wheel, but you don't need 300-400 horsepower. You certainly don't need 1,000. You don't need all-wheel drive. You don't need a lot of the things that you don't need the huge beefy brakes. Well, I mean, they're not huge and beefy, but combined with regen, they're a lot stronger than they need to be for the overwhelming majority of applications. So you can get a much more affordable, much more reasonable vehicle if you're not looking for breakneck acceleration. So I think that's a bigger factor than worrying about what FSD will cost. But I do think it would be insane for Tesla to have a de facto monopoly on mass-produced FSD and not at least recoup a substantial portion of their R&D costs that they've put into it these many years. So I think they would be absolutely demanding a chunk of it. I don't think you would. I think the two-tiered system would be, you can't buy FSD for, if you can either buy it or you can't. There's no commercial versus non-commercial. It'd be too hard to monitor, regulate. So I think it would just be, you either get the FSD or you don't. If it's worth it to you to have a $30,000 chauffeur for just you, buy it. And if not, don't.
Oh, no. Okay. So but let me just clap back at you.
Sure.
Think it
I'm
through.
ready.
Think it through one more time. I don't think it'll be hard to differentiate because you'll have your app. And in order to be able to push the part of the app that says, put it in the fleet, that won't be lit up unless you've paid for the commercial version. It won't even
Uber
be
would have
available
it.
to you.
Uber would offer it.
Well, Uber might, but that's a big fleet in a completely different world.
No, I mean, Uber would have a robotaxi specific app. It would just be a different class of vehicles, just like you can order Uber X or Uber Large.
And you're talking about long time from now.
Right. When it happens, it would not be impossible for them to say, we have an additional class of vehicle available, just like the XL or the X or the Uber Black, where it is Uber autonomous. And I would, instead of spending 30,000 to use Tesla's network, I'd spend 8,000 and put it on Uber's network.
Oh, yes, but you know it's in
competition will
it's in the
exist.
contract. It's in the contract. Bidding up the cost of cars based on this is before the outage. The Riverside area is having extreme high heats right now, and we've had numerous outages. So who knows? We may have another one. We were talking about how people would be bidding up the price of not just bidding up the price of the Tesla vehicles, but also there would be this way that the price per mile, et cetera, would start, that would also become a commodity of sorts over time, and people would start to recognize what the real value was, which would also impact the price of the cars. I'm really talking about that first 3 to 6 months after the announcement where things will be crazy.
It's going to be a paradigm shift. And even the first year or two is going to be a mad scramble. I'm concerned that it won't be in the next 3 to 6 months. If Elon believed it would be in the next 3 to 6 months, he would already be building new capacity that we're just not seeing. The one of the executives at Giga Berlin for the European operation said the reason we haven't begun expanding the factory footprint is because the demand just isn't there. And if they knew that these cars were about to be switched on, boy, I think they would be building it. So that's my concern, is that it's not happening this second, but when it does, it's going to be a big one. And I have seen some steps back on 12.5 now that I'm home. This morning I had a fun one. It pulled up to the 4-way stop, and every time the light went red, it would stop. And that was a whole lot of fun. And then of course we get to the no turn on red, and it's like, yeah, that sign's not for me. I can't read. So that's not great. But those are surely known issues that they'll be working on.
Right. Are you on 12.5.1 or just 12.5?
0.1.
Point one. Yeah. People have talked about 12.5.1 and not quite as good as 12.5. I am unfortunately not in possession of either yet. So I'm not in that special class, you know.
Hardware 3 crew, you gotta, well, but you did get 12.3.6 long before the hardware 4 cars, I believe. So
yeah. It all works out.
yeah.
All right. So anyway, the concept here today is that on a down day, on a day when people are scrambling and wonder what in the heck, as I'm reporting this, Tesla is down 3.26, all the way down to $200.91, but it was lower. And people are wondering, should I sell? Should I buy? What should I do? All I can say is, in my humble opinion, we may not have robotaxis on the road in 6 months, but within that 6-month window, and maybe on 10/10, there will probably be enough information for these entrepreneurial types to start thinking, I want to start grabbing up some of those used cars. What do you think?
I mean, it would make sense. We don't know. And the people selling today, I'm concerned about, because what are you doing? The key to buy low, sell high is not to buy high and sell low. I feel like there's too many dyslexic investors who are out there doing it backwards. It's unfortunate, but hey, man, what are you going to do? There's only so much advice we can give them, Randy.
I know. So limited time.
And that's not just, and I'm not saying that just about Tesla. I'm saying that the entire market is so red right now that it's, yeah, if I was the type of person who obsessed over daily movements, it would stress me out, but
yeah,
this too shall pass.
NVIDIA in the pre-market this morning was down 15%, mostly because Jensen, he said something political over the weekend and people just ran for the hills.
Maybe that's a terrible idea for CEOs to do that. Who knows?
I don't
certainly I don't have any ideas on that subject, but it's great. Well, there's a reason corporations spend millions and millions on brand management. But who, again, what do we know? We're just lowly folks on the front line dealing with it personally sometimes. So that's fun. That's fun.
Of course, I was joking. Jensen didn't say anything over the weekend.
Oh, well,
it
would have surprised me.
It was down 15% because it was down 15%.
Right. Because the whole market was off a bit.
And it was down way more than the rest of the market. Yeah.
And do you really think NVIDIA's prospects have shifted 15% today?
No, I think.
Well, you heard the news, right? No, I didn't.
No.
There wasn't any. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, investors being skittish. The other part to remember is that a lot of times the algos will see the algos are easily spooked. And if they see a big enough shift, they just start dumping, and that spooks the other algos. And pretty soon That's why when the market, if a market moves too much, they'll suspend trading for the rest of the day,
Right.
because you don't need a flash crash. So
Yeah, it takes a pretty big drop. I think it's a 15% drop in the Dow, and they stopped trading for 15 minutes. So we haven't come anywhere close to that today. All right, Brian. Hey, listen, it's been great. Thank you for helping me ferret out this thing and add to my case. That's even better. You had ideas that had not popped into my pea brain. So thanks for joining us as always. Follow this guy everywhere and follow me too. That'd be good too. All right. It's been great. Brian, thank you again. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.